Welcome to Every Game in My Steam Library, episode 3. Today we're talking about Steep, which is a game by Ubisoft. It's kind of like a spiritual successor to a bunch of different snow sports games that don't release anymore. And I played it and I have some opinions on it. So welcome. Davis, you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, I am your overlord, as you know. And I have made you play Steep because I know how much you miss SSX and how you know that you would be rather playing that. So that's why I made you play this one instead.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Yeah, so did you enjoy it?
You know, Steep is a game, for sure. It's definitely one of the snowboarding games. I mean, we'll get to it later, but I think that my overall idea or my overall feelings from Steep is that really, if you want to play a snowboarding game, you should go play SSX, specifically on tour, because that's the best one, in my opinion. But all of them are good. Or go play Skate. That's the other thing that I wrote down, is that if you want an experience like this, just go play Skate. But I think that...
Yeah, why is that? What's driving you away from Steep? What's making it less of a game than what it could be?
Well, I think that the biggest problem with Steep is that they tried really hard to make it a social experience, which doesn't really work when the game's like nearly dead, which it is now because it came out a while ago. But also, it feels like there was a lot of like combative design, so to speak. Like there were 3 or 4 teams that were each trying to do something different with this game. None of them could come together and make a cohesive game. So it feels like everything's very bare bones, but at the same time conflicting with each other. So I have some notes here. I'm just gonna go through them kind of like top to bottom here. And the first thing that I want to talk about is the G-force meter. And this is like really reminiscent of Skate, actually, because in Skate you have like the bone breaker mode or whatever, where you crash into things and like rack up medical bills, which was really fun to play, really entertaining. And they have kind of a similar mode in Steep, but the problem is it doesn't lean hard enough into it, and that is kind of indicative of the problems of the rest of the modes as well, is that they're just not leaning hard enough into like a designed experience. Feels like they built an engine and a simulator and then didn't actually put any thought into the game part of it. So for example, the G-force meter, like it doesn't give you the x-ray of the bones. The ragdolls are entertaining, but it can also like ruin your run because it's persistent. Like it's not something you can turn on or turn off. So in the middle of a race, you can like make a bad move because the controls will also be fighting with you the whole time, and you'll crash into a tree and you'll go flying and you can't even like reset like onto the run. You have to restart the race if that happens. Like you're fucked basically if that happens in the middle of your race, because you just have to restart the whole thing, and it makes the experience really, really frustrating. So
wait, so there's no like, it doesn't just plop you back in the middle of it,
no,
like Mario Kart or SSX?
No, there's no like line reset or anything. You have to restart the race if that happens. Like you're going to lose if you like hit something, because it also takes fucking forever for your character to get back up. Like you'll just keep tumbling down the mountain, and until you stop, you'll just keep tumbling while you're in that like ragdoll mode.
Does your character not just stand up where they fell?
No, like so what happens is like you'll run into something, right? And then it'll knock you off your board or off your skis or whatever. And as long as the G-force is under 100, you won't KO, so you'll stand back up after a while. But to stand back up, you have to stop moving. So if you're on a steep hill, like you'll just tumble like head over feet the whole time until you're at the bottom of the hill. And then once you come to a stop, your character will stand back up and you can keep playing the game. But in that time that it took you to tumble down that whole hill, everyone will have gotten way ahead of you and everything. And you missed all the trick spots too. So in anything other than a mode directly designed to take advantage of that feature, it is a huge detriment to your experience, because you just have to restart.
So it sounds
like you run into something and you have to restart the whole race.
So it sounds like an arcade game stuck in a simulator.
Yeah, a little bit.
Or vice versa.
Like an arcade mode stuck in a simulator, you know? Yeah. And that kind of leads me into my thoughts on everything else too, is that like it just doesn't feel very well thought out. So like for racers, there's no consistent competitors. Like you don't get a rival. There's no like characters or anything. Like it's just random ghost times that are represented by NPCs that will race with you. But like one of my favorite aspects of SSX was the fact that like you had rivals and like you would recognize names on the leaderboard. Like they were all NPCs obviously because this was on fucking PS2.
But they were
like,
characters.
Yeah, they were characters, and like you would like challenge them. Like you'd have to rise up the ranks and like challenge characters, and it feels like some of the special events in Steep like tried to do that, but there's no overarching like campaign mode, which is a huge detriment to the game. Like there needs to be a campaign mode where I like rise up the ranks and get to upgrade my gear and all this, like where I'm working to something. It kind of feels like I was just dropped into a sandbox and there's nothing to work toward. Like I had all the sports like ready to go, including like the funny ones like the sled, and there was nothing like, oh, you have to like beat this and this and this to unlock, you know, the paragliding or something like that. Like there's no mechanic like that. It's just like, here's a mountain, here's some challenges, fucking go for it.
Is everything
that's not like entertaining, you know?
Yeah, is everything available like right off the bat then, or there's no like
I mean, I think it might have something to do with how the game came out several years ago and was a live service game, and so at some point I think they just unlocked everything for everyone because they weren't supporting it anymore, which again is a detriment to the game. Like the fact that they had no system in place to allow you to play this game by yourself, it just showed it's such a good example of like a company thinking that like, oh, we'll make a game and we'll just support it forever. And it's like, that's an unrealistic line of thinking. Like you have to build that replayability into the game from the get-go, you know? It's like, I don't want a game where I just like ski around in a sandbox. I want a game where I'm like actually playing a campaign and getting better gear and like leveling up and that actually meaning something.
Is this the same team that made Riders Republic? Do you know?
I don't know. It's definitely, I haven't played Riders Republic. I don't know anything about it, but I think it's same vibes. Like I get the same vibes from it. And I think the point of Riders Republic was like, it was supposed to make Steep obsolete a little bit, because I think they have skiing and snowboarding in that game too. I'm not sure.
Right, because they do, and it's Ubisoft, so I was just double checking.
I mean, it might be. It probably is. Like, it's definitely, that's supposed to be the spiritual successor to Steep, and that's probably why Steep is not as supported as it used to be.
It's the same developer, so that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So that doesn't surprise me. But the problem is that, like, they already had that framework, you know? Like, this is the problem with every live service game where they just, like, abandon one and then make a new one. It's like, just update the one you have. You know, the whole point of the live service is so that you can add, you know, crap onto it as you go.
Exactly.
And instead of doing that, they just, like, abandoned it and made a new one. And it just, it feels like an unfinished mess, man. It feels like an unfinished mess. It, like, the GeForce meter just gets in the way of everything that's not a GeForce, like, event, you know? So like in freestyle events, it's like if you land a trick wrong, like, you're fucked. Your multiplier goes back to 0. You slide down the mountain, you miss all the jumps, and then you have to restart the event. In a race, it's like if you run into a tree, like, you're fucked. You slide down the mountain, everyone passes you, and then you have to restart the race. Or I think the one event where it kind of makes sense in is the wingsuit. Because, like, if you crash into something in a wingsuit, like, you're probably fucked.
Yeah,
you have to restart.
You have to keep some realism in there.
Yeah, exactly. But, I mean, that's also when it's the most entertaining, too, is when you're in the wingsuit and you just, like, crash into a rock outcropping and go flying. Like, it was very entertaining. I think that the wingsuit was probably one of the most entertaining parts of the game, because it actually, first of all, the wingsuit controls better than anything else, first of all. And then also the wingsuit challenges were actually, like, challenges, and not because of obstacles and because of the GeForce meter, but because it was actually challenging to, like, ride the lines that they had, like, laid out for you in the wingsuit and go through the stuff that they had laid out for you. But I think that most of the challenge for me in the game came from the fact that I was just fighting with the GeForce meter the whole time in races and in freestyle events. It was ridiculous.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is that it's a wingsuit game stuck in a snowboard game.
Yeah,
it seems like this game is a lot of games stuck inside of a game that it's not.
Yeah, it's like they were trying to cram as much in there as they could, but it's like a classic case of feature creep. It's like the more that they put in there, the less fleshed out everything is. And there's just a total lack of like style in it too. So like I'm thinking about SSX on tour, and it's like when you do tricks in SSX, like it can go into slow-mo, the camera angle changes, and like the screen starts flashing and shit, and like your score starts ramping up and like pulsing in the corner of the screen. Like there's nothing like that in this game. Nothing. And I get that they're trying to be like
Uber in like the Uber mode in SSX Tricky, you know, where you like activate that and pull off insane stunts with it.
Exactly. Or like monster tricks in SSX on tour, like same concept, where it's like you get to a certain level of boost and then you can pull off these crazy fucking tricks where you like take off your board and your skis and like fling it around and shit. And like the tricks are like, they look cool in the game, don't get me wrong, and they're like fun to pull off. Like when you pull off a good trick, like it's satisfying. Okay. But the problem is like when I land, the G-force meter goes off, and if it goes above 10, I fall off my skis, I lose all my points, and my multiplier resets. And it's like,
wait, so is the game
G-force
punishing you for going too fast?
Yeah, it does.
On
it straight up does. Like, yeah, if you go too fast, and you can like clip a tree when you're going too fast, and you'll go fucking flying. Like, it won't KO you. It'll get you up to like 35 G-force or something, and then you'll go flying, and you won't be able to recover for like 5 minutes while you watch your character just like tumble down the mountain. Like not KO'd, not nothing, but like you can't stand back up until he's done tumbling. It's just like,
it's an interesting decision, I guess. Yeah,
it's just like,
I'm understanding more of what you mean by your like frustrations, that it kind of comes down to this G-force meter. Like it's such a, it seems like it should be an extra thing and not like the core movement mechanic.
Yeah, exactly. So what I have written down here is that like the G-force meter should be like optional. So in the game you can press up on the D-pad to like fall on purpose and essentially like activate the G-force meter, but it's always active. Like you can always activate it, but that's to do it on purpose. But instead of that, or like add this other control onto it where it's like short press is like you follow on purpose, but like a long press is like you turn it off, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like that way if you like smash into a tree or whatever while you're racing, like you don't have to wait 20 minutes for your character to stand up again or restart the race. Like you can just like do what every other snowboarding game does and just like stop and like arrange yourself around the tree and like get back into the race, you know? Like a huge part of what makes games fun is the ability to reset your mistakes quickly. And if you can't do that, if the game doesn't let you do that, like it just becomes such a grating experience, you know? And that's what really killed it for me, dude, is this G-force meter is just so unforgiving and it's just not fun. It's only fun in specific contexts where like it makes sense, but like don't give me that shit when I'm doing a freestyle event. Like I just jumped off a fucking cliff doing like 1,000 flips. Like I don't want to land at the bottom and be like, oh, sorry, you suffered more than 10 G's of force, so you're actually gonna fall off your skis, lose all your points, and oh wait, this is a freestyle event? Sucks, dude. Like,
yeah, it seems like it's punishing you for playing the game.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, why is this here? Why is this consistently across every mode? Why?
Like I'm doing it's what like, you're asking me to do and you're getting mad at me, you know?
Yeah. And some of the events that are really cool, there's this one event, or this one type of event where you have to jump off a cliff and get as many points in one jump as possible. Those would be so fun if the hardest part of the event was not landing. Like I will jump off a cliff and do like some crazy stunts and be like, oh, this is gonna be awesome, and land, and I just have to like cross my fingers that I land at the exact right angle, that I don't top out the G-force meter and actually get the points for the jump. It's like the actual challenge of that type of event comes from the fact that like you just have to be lucky on the landing, essentially.
That's my favorite kind of game. Luck based. Completely and utterly luck. It's always fun.
It just it feels like a luck game. Like the G-force meter just makes it feel unpredictable and not in a fun way.
Right,
you
and
know,
it doesn't seem like
makes it feel like the game is looking for any chance to knock you down.
Right, and it doesn't feel like it's like it adds anything. Like it's not fleshed out enough that it works as intended. I feel like they shipped the game knowing that mechanic wasn't how they wanted it to work.
Yeah, I feel like that's probably true. Like, the more that I think about it, the more I feel like anyone who plays this game will understand what I mean within like 20 minutes of like trying to start an event. Like, I battled more with this G-force meter than anything else in the game. Like, if the game was just like a little bit more forgiving, even like if they kept it a consistent thing but like made it so you don't fall off your skis until like 50 G's instead of 10, like it would already make it so much better. The 10G allowance is so low. Like, I can do like a flip off of a little jump going like 20 miles an hour down like a bunny hill. I'll land like slightly on my heels and my G-force hits 8 and I am like the screen goes like black and white. It's like Call of Duty, bro. Like, jam on the screen shit, and it won't recover unless I stop and let it refill. And it's like, there is no better way to break the pacing of your game than including this mechanic. Like, it is such a baffling design decision.
It reminds me of like it's like if you're trying to snowboard in like Death Stranding, you know? Like, Death Stranding is so much about like just climbing over things and walking and like momentum and not falling over, and like that makes sense because that's the entire game. But when you have it in a snowboard game and your snowboard game feels like as ruthless as Death Stranding, that's a problem, you know?
Dude, but it does, like, that's such a good comparison. I didn't even think of that while I was playing it, but yeah, it does. It feels like Death Stranding. Like, in Death Stranding, like, you'll walk into a river that's going a little too fast, or it's a little too deep, right? And you didn't do the little thing beforehand where you see where the water is going and how deep it is, and you get taken by surprise a little bit and you start staggering, and then like you'll fall over in a little bit and all your stuff will go flowing down the river. But this is a snowboarding game, right? Like, I shouldn't have to be worried about that. Right. You know, it's like, I shouldn't have to be worried if like the terrain has a little bump on it. Like, literally, you can, like, not jumping or anything, if you just like shoot it down a hill of moguls in this game, like, you'll fall off your skis, which I get is like realistic. Like, if you shoot it down a hill of moguls in real life, like, you'll probably end up dead or in the hospital. I get that, but like, that's not why I'm playing a snowboarding video game.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like, they wanted to make a simulator, but then they also wanted to make it a snowboarding game. And like, snowboarding and skiing games have this attitude to them that, like, if you've ever seen the Always Sunny in Philadelphia episode where they're on the mountain, I think it's called like Mountain Rules or something. It's like, that's the vibe of like snowboarding and skiing video games.
Right.
You know, where it's like there's no rules, like there's an announcer who knows everything on the mountain. It's all about going fast. And, you know, pulling off crazy tricks and all this shit, and like partying and cool shit like that. And then Steep is like, what if you were watching the last 2 minutes of that episode on repeat, where Dennis fucking breaks his ankle and Frank buys the whole mountain and mines it for oil? Like, that's what playing Steep is like. It's like your illusion of fun from like looking at it is shattered the second that you like land slightly awkwardly and your G-force meter goes off and you just like fly off your skis and your whole run is ruined. You know, it's like, it makes me so angry that this mechanic is just not well thought out. And like, it's unfortunate because when I'm running a really solid line in this game, like, it is really fun. Like, the graphics are solid, the physics are solid. Like, I would really, really enjoy this game if it had a career mode and the G-force mechanic was either optional or just way more forgiving. Like, it needs to be one of those two. Like, this is not a Wipeout game. This is not a Strand type game. This is a snowboarding game. Like, let me snowboard.
So what would you recommend this to people? Should I try out Steep?
It's a good question. I mean, honestly, if you have a PC, I would probably just download PCSX2, PS2 emulator, and then get SSX on tour. Like, it's gonna be such a much more fun experience. Also has local multiplayer. Fantastic game. One of my favorite games of all time. Great game. Has a career mode. You can unlock gear. There's a great cheat code that lets you have infinite money. You know, if you wanna play it like that. You can unlock Mario, Luigi, and Peach, and you can snowboard and ski as them if you play the GameCube ROM instead.
Well, that sounds better already.
Yeah, dude, it's fucking sick. And Luigi has like cool ass sound effects. It's great. I love that game, and I think that idea, like when I play SSX on tour, like it feels like they were trying to make a fun snowboarding game, you know?
Yeah.
And when I play Steep, they were trying to make a mountain simulator that you can ski in. And then because you could do that, they were like, oh, well, let's market this and brand it and kind of like push some things around and like make it a skiing game. And it's like, but it's not. It's like it's a wingsuit game with a skiing mode tacked on, essentially. Yeah, and like that kind of brings me to paragliding too. Like there are some sports in this game that are just like, why is this in here? Like the paragliding is so boring and controls so badly. It's like, why did you even include this? Like, this is not fun at all. I don't want to play this mode. I don't want to play this sport. Don't give this to me. It's terrible.
Sounds like you really enjoyed it. I'm glad.
It's a shame though, because like I did at points.
Right. You like it was there.
Where there was.
You could taste it.
I could taste it. It was so close. Like a few small changes would have made this game so much better. So much better.
Absolutely.
It's unfortunate, man. It's unfortunate.
Just is what it is with the industry sometimes. You know, you got too many cooks in the kitchen, and it sours the pot.
It does. I really feel like the feeling that I get from this, I really feel like that was the case. Is they just wanted, there were too many people, and they didn't have a central vision, and the game really suffered for it. You know, it wasn't great. It was not a great experience. I would not recommend this game. Go play SSX on tour. That's a great game. That's a fantastic game. It's got tons of style. You go fast as hell. It's got a boost mechanic. Bro, that's great. I wish this game had a boost mechanic. That'd be sick. It would be terrifying with the G-force meter, but it would be fun for like 10 seconds.
See, we should see what we can do playing around with the files. Maybe add that.
Boost mod?
Is there a modding community, do you know, for Steam?
No, dude, it's a Ubisoft live service. There's no mods.
There's no shot.
It's terrible. Dude, if there were mods for this game, there would be like a campaign mod in like 20 minutes.
Right.
Definitely. Because like I'm sure the systems and like the database for it is there. Like it feels like they cut that out. It feels so bare bones. It feels like they initially wanted to do a campaign and you know, corporate was like, no, it's a live service game. Like don't include a campaign because then people won't buy like the future packs for more levels. You know, it feels like that. It's really terrible. And it's just a great example of why live service games just like don't really work. Like unless
it takes
you have
a lot for them
really, yeah, unless you have like a really dedicated team and a really specific vision, a live service game just isn't gonna work. Like games are games, you know. Like I don't subscribe to Dominion and then they give me, you know, 5 extra cards a month. Like that's not how board games work. That's not how any game other than video games work. And even video games barely work like that, you know. Anyway, not a great game.
Not a great game.
Not a great game.
I'll allow it. I'll let you cross this one off. It's one less game you have to play.
All right.
Do you want to know what the next one is?
All right. What's my next game?
Your next game is none other than The Cycle Frontier.
Oh no! Oh no! It's free to play. It's a free to play extraction shooter.
Looks like it has a nice middling reviews.
Isn't it mixed?
Yeah, good old like.
Is it mixed or mostly negative?
60-ish%.
Oh jeez. All right.
It came out last year, and it had a 24-hour player peak of 2,020 players. So you know it's gonna be really good.
All right. Well, this one's free to play though, so I'm gonna make you play it with me.
Oh, good. That's what I wanted. That's what I was hoping for. Awesome.
Gotcha. You did it to yourself.
I've played myself. Fantastic. All right. Well,
All right. Anything you want to shout out?
Man, I'll see you in the cycle.
I guess so. I'll see you in the cycle. Before we sign off, I'd like to shout out Hair Trigger, Davis's movie. Everyone should go check that out.
Yeah.
I watched it the other day. Interesting movie. Kind of a mixture of concepts. I liked it. I would definitely recommend.
It's a cool grindhouse heist movie of sorts. It's like very paranoia. Yeah. I love it.
Yeah, it's a good way to describe it. Grindhouse heist movie. Also, go check out Drunken Philosophy. It's one of my favorite podcasts. They stopped making it like 3 years ago, but it's a solid podcast. Go listen to it. All right, with that, we'll see you in the next one. The Cycle Frontier.